Welcome to the show.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much.
It's a real treat. I don't know if we've met since I've been an adult, but when I was much younger, you sang, or you spoke at the Newfoundland Symphony Youth Choir training at the rim of the Carol Singing Sea.
Yes.
At Dylan Thomas's A Child's Christmas in Wales.
That's right.
And I was part of the choir that sang behind you.
Were you?
I certainly was. Yeah.
My God.
Yeah.
Did I say hello?
You did, and you're gonna give us a little pat on the head.
A little pat on the head.
Yeah. So when I saw that story in the documentary about Bob Hope patting you on the head, I said, I've been patted on the head by Bob Hope through Gordon Pinsent. This documentary, Gordon, looks at your life and career and all the kind of geographical stops you made in your career. I want to start, though, before we start at the beginning, I want to start at a moment in your career that I found so interesting. So you're in a movie theater. It's 1972. It's the premiere of The Rowdyman, the comedy in Newfoundland, which you wrote and starred in. In fact, when I told my mother I was speaking to you, she said, "You're talking to The Rowdyman. Go away." And something happens to the screen, and you're sitting next to someone sort of prestigious. What happens at this premiere?
Well, that was up in Ottawa with Trudeau.
Oh, that was Ottawa. I thought that wasn't in town. That was in Ottawa.
For that particular showing.
Yeah.
It had already opened in St. John's
Yeah.
at that time.
Yeah.
And the theatre fell in after that. Did you know that? The roof came in on the Paramount Hotel.
You get bad luck.
Yes, but
Yeah.
but in the Ottawa version, Trudeau showed up.
So Pierre
Trudeau. So we're sitting next to each other with loads of popcorn and stuff, and the movie started, and they came in upside down.
Oh.
And I thought, way to go, right on the first, And he said, well, we have popcorn.
Yeah. You should have tried to pass it off as an art film.
That's right.
No, Pierre, it's supposed to be like that.
No, it's supposed to be like that.
Yeah. Don't you understand cinema? I was watching this film about your life. I saw a bit of a theme, moments like that Pierre Elliott Trudeau incident. Things go wrong, but you make it right using your imagination, using a sense of humor, using sometimes a little bit of bluffing. So you grew up in Grand Falls, which now, as I pointed out, I made a phone call about this yesterday. I am to say you were born in Grand Falls, Newfoundland, which is now Grand Falls-Windsor, Newfoundland and Labrador.
Yes.
Yeah. What was your life like that? I'm guessing, was it a working class kind of family in Grand Falls?
Working class, living downtown. Yeah. I came into the world and I said, "Oh, this is nice people, my family, and everything's good."
Yeah.
And I kind of stayed downtown for quite a while, and we, and the time came, of course, when I big enough to go uptown and discovered we had a movie house and a few other things, but we were a happy. Pretty, hardworking, but not too well off, obviously, but still it was a fine family.
I love what you said about your mother in the documentary, and you said that she was quiet. But she was wonderful, but she was quiet. And
Yes.
it was through her silence that you found your creativity. Is
That's
that right?
That's right.
What do you mean by that?
Well, she really, for a woman who just simply, she had come from Trinity Bay area, Bonavista and Trinity Bay area, and a lot of young men had come to work in the mill for the first time. So this is where the Grand Falls epic kind of period took place, and but she was certainly the quietest little person one could ever, and I took great advantage of that and gave her a tough time over the years, but she's the one I remember most as putting a stamp on me, and I remember every pore in that woman's skin, and so on, and I regret that, well, at that point in time, it was just a hard life for her throughout. And my brother, my only brother who's left now, we chatted about it a number of times, how now we remember her more than anyone or anything. And he said, I know, he said, with the means we have now, we could have made life so much easier for her. And so that's always been a regret. But she's a great woman.
And up the road, as you mentioned, from the downtown, there was the movie theater, the movie house, as you call it.
The Nickel.
I love, it was the Nickel, was it?
The Nickel.
I love the story in this of how you paid your way into the movies, how you managed to sneak your way in.
Yes. Oh, yes. Yes, you were allowed to bring a member of your family in with you, so I'd grab anyone's hand going. People fighting me off with sticks.
And was it the
Hey, Pop.
Yeah, don't forget me.
Don't forget me.
Was it the kind of thing that you were sitting down and you were watching these movies, and were you looking at them and going, "Yeah, that's what I want to do. That's where I'm going to be."
Oh, yes. Oh, yes, from the word go. From the word go, I couldn't imagine anything else. I sketched a lot at school, so I was good at sketching and various things, but I sort of took it for granted. And but I was terrible at everything else, and I had an embarrassing relationship with manual labor at the time. I thought, oh yes, well, I'm not going to be much of anything anywhere. I don't know what, and discovered the world of art and of dramatic arts and so on, and went looking for stages to appear on, and for things such as that, and of course later on. The first network stuff out of Winnipeg, where I began my career, and happy enough to be part of a nucleus of actors for a new stage company called the Manitoba Theatre Centre.
I can't wait to talk about Winnipeg. You did this thing that so many Newfoundlanders have done, especially when you were coming up, and I've done, which is leave, and you leave to find work. However, I love that you left because this is pre-1949.
Oh, yes.
Confederation with Canada, not there yet.
No.
You're a Newfoundlander. You were born a Newfoundlander,
Yeah.
not a Canadian.
That's right.
So you have to clear customs.
That's right.
When you get to Cape Breton.
Yes.
And you almost didn't get in.
That's right.
And all of a sudden you're an actor.
Yep.
What happens?
I needed $250 on X-rays. I had my X-rays for tuberculosis,
Yeah.
and but I had no money at all. So, but I told him a joke or something. I must have, because he laughed a lot. This customs guy, he said, "All right," he said, "I'll let you in now." But he said, "You got to stay in this very vicinity, and you got to be working in 3 days, or I'm sending you back.
Right.
You're not quite Canadian yet," he said.
Yeah. How old were you here?
I was 17.
17 years old.
So I was walking along, and there was a trench, and picking a shovel down there, and the workmen were off having lunch somewhere, and I saw these two suits coming along over there, and one of them was this same fella that I told this joke to. I jumped down in the trench, and I started chopping away and putting mud on my face and doing it all. He came over, leaned down, and said, "You're working?" I said, "Yes, boy." I love it. I said, "I'm nothing without a pick and shovel." They left and I took off. I've been illegal ever since.
Yeah. Someone's going to listen to this and send you back.
I know.
Yeah,
I
that's
know.
what's gonna
I've
happen.
always had fears of that.
You're going to get a phone call from Canada Customs right now. What happened? If you're just tuning in, I'm speaking with Gordon Pinsent, who I don't have to give too much of an explanation for, I'm sure. But as he mentioned earlier, it's a name that's often associated with Winnipeg, with Manitoba. And that's where you kind of became an actor. That's where you became part of the theater scene there.
I did. I was in, as a matter of fact, I was at Shiloh, Manitoba in the paratroopers, in the airborne.
Really?
Yes.
Go away.
For 3 years. And I was coming down, and I had trouble up at the door of the plane on one occasion, and I caused myself a terrible amount of trouble. But
What do you mean?
I finally jumped. I hung on, see? But then I hung on, but the prop blast took my foot and dragged me out, and now I was falling. So when the chute opened,
Yeah.
I'm now going down in this thing, and the shroud lines got tangled up and everything else. And I said to myself, swear to God, what'll I do when I land? Where will I go with this? This is not me somehow. So I figured I'd either teach dancing at Arthur Murray's, which I figured I'd teach dancing. I had rhythm. That's about all I had, or act. So I was lucky to get in on as one of a nucleus of actors for John Hirsch at the Manitoba Theatre Centre, the very beginning of that theatre. And I taught dancing at Arthur Murray's at the same time, see? So
The things that you realize...
not easy to do in Winnipeg in galoshes, I'll tell you.
The things that you realize when you're falling to your death from a plane, Gordon. The revelations we have when we're near peril. falling from a plane.
Never fails. Yeah.
And I love this story, similar to the Customs story. You kind of go up to the theater in Winnipeg and you say, "Well, I'm a big time actor." What is this? And you were trying to play some small roles.
Yes. Little. It was a little group called the New Play Society, and the woman caught me before I left the theater. I was in the audience, and she said, "Well, you're a fairly personable-looking young fella. Have you ever acted?" I said, "Oh yeah, I've done all that." I said, "But I've never known how to do small parts." I said, "I've only done leads."
Oh,
And she said, "Well, we're about to read the next play. Would you like to read with us?" "Yes, that'd be nice." I said, "But I live too far out of town to come in for a small part."
so they got you a good one.
And she got me the lead. Yeah.
That's the biggest scam I've ever heard in my entire life. I'm not
I
gonna lie
didn't
to
even
you.
know how to put on makeup. I used to copy them beyond slapping on me.
Did you think to yourself, what am I after getting myself into? Or were you sure you could do it?
I enjoyed the guts that it took, oddly enough, even though I shivered a bit, at the idea, because I didn't know enough about it. But during the rehearsal, somebody from another theater uptown, they were doing Twelfth Night, Shakespeare's Twelfth Night, I overheard that the part of Sebastian had dropped out. I raced up the street and I got that one too. So I was doing in one without any experience. I was doing one of them Shakespeare. I did Twelfth Night, and I did the lead in the thing called Years Ago.
Gordon, where do you think that kind of tenacity, that resourcefulness comes from in you?
I think probably having the hidden fear that maybe from 9 4th Avenue, Grand Falls, nothing was special was going to happen to me. I didn't see anything up ahead, so I went looking for it anyway. I just don't know. I think it was just a guessing game that I had with myself, And,
Did you ever worry about it not working out, or was there no option? It had to work.
No option. No option. I absolutely felt. I mean, someone had to do it. Somebody was doing it somewhere,
Yeah.
And so off I went to Winnipeg, and I broke ground a bit from my accent at the time. I did a lot of radio work, a lot of that. The first live television out of Winnipeg. I did the first network television, black and white, and. Did I tell you that one?
No.
Should I tell you?
Yeah, go on.
We got that?
Gordon, we got nothing but time.
Nothing but time.
I'm getting out a cot and a sleeping bag, and we're not leaving.
It was a play rather based in a sort of a Cuban-like situation. I was lying on a bed of straw, and I was a rebel, and I had lots of makeup on my face, and I'm waiting there, and I'm lying there, and that's supposed to be the beginning of it. We hadn't started yet, the film, and I thought, I wonder if I have enough makeup on. So I jumped up, and I went to the makeup place, and I filled my mouth with gauze, with bloody gauze, strips of gauze. And I can't be. I came back, I laid down on the straw again, and the girl in the piece, whom I didn't know in the script, came up to the bars on the other side. And she said, Raoul, did you see my father out there in the... Now I figure I can't speak because I was too anxious with all my makeup. So I crawled across the straw, and I got up to the bars, and I realized I had a page to deliver. And it was network. We're talking now about right across the country.
Yeah.
First one.
Wow.
And I said to speak, and I couldn't. And her eyes were beautiful. She was a gorgeous girl. So I reached in, I took her head, and I pulled it in, and I kissed her. Till I could remember the words.
Oh, good.
See?
Yeah.
I remembered all I could see were these two frightened deer's eyes, this gorgeous girl. I took her head away, having remembered the line, and the eyes were still good, but her cheekbones were wider than the bars, which had been freshly painted by the CBC. And they came down the sides of the face, sir. And I lost the line again. I went back for another kiss. So that was it. She became a painter. Very good one, too. Yeah. She stopped acting.
That's a good stalling technique, Gordon.
It's not a bad one.
Yeah. As far as they go.
I figured if I could take my silent acting, make that profound enough, maybe I wouldn't have to worry.
Then you go to Stratford, you go to Toronto. Now you're like, I mean, to me, especially growing up in Newfoundland, when someone would ask, like, what's an actor?
Yeah.
Who's an actor? My father would Bob Joy.
Yeah,
Who,
that's right, Bob,
and
yes.
Bob Joy, who was with Codco, and
Codco,
now, and he was down in L.A. and he's
Yeah.
now on CSI. Bob Joy and Gordon Pinsent. Those were the two actors that I knew of growing up in Newfoundland. But I know it wasn't always this way. And you're talking about these early years trying out roles. When did you feel like you had really cemented yourself as an actor in this country?
Under John Hirsch, the producer, New Time Hungarian-Canadian, who had started his career out in Winnipeg at the Manitoba Theatre Centre, which is now called the Royal Manitoba Theatre Centre. And I was the first actor to step on stage for that. Mm-hmm. And I began to feel quite serious about it and said goodbye to daylight and just entered the darkness of theatre and stayed there,
Is that when you stopped worrying about having to go back to Grand Falls, having to go back to 4th Avenue?
It's possible. No, I don't believe I had any intention of going back until I had done something.
Right.
I wanted to do something special for my mother, and it began a kind of a series of successes, or somewhat. Certainly, I was a working man, and so that began to make sense. And I was in time for. I just felt pretty good about that. The lineup of things that I did under John Hirsch, I felt fantastic about, and I suddenly then was able to avoid the rest of my working life. Then took in simply being in that venue, and just became happier at it and better at it, and so on. I sort of kept on going, and my idea was to go to New York after that. Didn't go. Stopped off in Toronto to see if I could beat Toronto.
Yeah.
And stayed there.
And you
pretty
did?
much. I went back to L.A. for a while, for quite a bit. But I began to write as well. So.
And when you were in Toronto, that's where I'm guessing that it's in Toronto or in Stratford that you associate your time there with your late wife, Charm.
Yes, not so much at Stratford. We didn't act together at Stratford.
But in Toronto.
She had, but in Toronto.
Where were you in your life when you met her?
There was the Crest Theatre. It was called the Crest Theatre, and it was probably the only professional theatre in Toronto at that time. She had done a good many leads there, and one of them was the Mad Woman of Shiloh, and she played the Mad Woman. I played her, the love interest. And she had a car.
And you forgot your lines, and you went for a...
And I forgot my lines, yes. Yes, and she drove me home every night. I live fairly close by.
Yeah.
And she drove me home every night, and we had late-night dinners and scotch.
Pretty good.
For quite a while.
Yeah. I bet that was a happy time.
A happy time. I had 2 children from an earlier marriage, a Winnipeg marriage.
Yeah, of course.
Yes. They're lovely people, lovely kids.
Are you still in touch?
Yeah, we are very much so. Very much so. He's Barry Kennedy, and he's a writer. He's got about 7 books now. And my daughter, Beverly, is just superb at what she does, a caterer and various other things. And, of course, there's Leah from the present marriage, who is just adorable. She's like a...
I didn't know until I was watching this documentary that you went to Los Angeles at all.
Oh, yes.
What brought you down there?
Well, I was playing Quentin Durgan's MP, and one of the last episodes in Toronto was seen by a producer from Hollywood, and he was making a movie called Colossus, the Forbin Project, and he cast me as the president. So I went down. I spent 12 weeks at Universal Studios playing the president, and Eric Braeden, who's played the lead in it, and Eric is now the main man on Young and Restless after all these years. His name was Hans Gudegast. He changed it to Eric Braeden. And I didn't change anything. I just went on.
And you were Kennedy, weren't you? You were President Kennedy.
Well, not exactly, although I was like a missing member of the Kennedy clan, yes.
Right. You were Gordon Kennedy.
Gordon Kennedy.
Yeah, the long lost cousin. And I couldn't believe this when I was watching this documentary. You were in the famous blaxploitation film Blackula.
I was.
Who were you in Blackula?
Well, funny you should mention.
I'm just noticing the looks that are coming from the TV team here that you were in Blackula.
Okay, now I don't know if I'm allowed to use. I don't want to lose your audience through a bit of language. No, I won't. I won't do that. Will I?
No cursing.
No cursing.
Go on, curse. Go on, do it. Yeah. You're Gordon Pinsent.
Well,
It's you and Bob Joy are allowed to curse on the show. That's about it. Yeah.
I love Bob. Bob and I had coffee a little while ago. Yeah,
Oh, go,
nice
man.
man.
Yeah.
Well, sir, there was a black friend of mine down in Los Angeles, and he had a movie that he was directing. He said, "Gordon, I got a new one. You got to be in it." He said, "It's for AIP, American International Pictures." I said, "Oh, well, okay. What's it like?" Well, he said, "It's called Blackula. It's one of the very first black movies, you know. So that was great." And I said, "Oh, all right, you know." And he said, "You'd be the white token in it, and away we go." You see. So it was at a time when people were changing their names. So the lead black man, friend of mine, and detective, friend, you know, of the thing. Anyway, he said he changed his name from Joe Carter or something to Thomas Rasalala,
Right.
because Cassius Clay had changed his name
To Muhammad Ali.
to Muhammad Ali.
Right.
So now we're in this room, and I said, "No, I don't want to do this." I thought, "I can't do this." "Yes, Gordon, you got to. It's my first movie," says the director. So now down I go, and we do it. I have a line in there because there were two young antique dealers who had brought over a coffin from Transylvania, and inside, of course, was Dracula, or Blackula, and he escaped. He got out of the coffin, and he killed these two, or dragged them off somewhere, and they were missing anyway. So Thomas said to me, "Well, now, where could they have gone?" I said, "Yes. Who the hell would want two dead black faggot vampires?" And that was the line. Well, the place went to pieces.
Did that stay in the film?
What? No, one version of it did. But the producers were out of town at the time, and when they came back, they said, "That's got to go."
Yeah, I would say so.
So they trimmed it down
Yeah.
to a slighter line. I forget what the line was, but it certainly meant no harm, and I certainly meant no harm. Well, Thomas just killed himself laughing, and off we went. You know, we had a great time in the film.
And then the place you're from Grand Falls in Newfoundland, it draws you back. What did you miss about Newfoundland?
Newfoundland, I began to write, you know, and when I wrote mostly in Los Angeles, the big stars from the golden years were coming over to television, which meant that probably I'd have a lot longer to wait to get my hands on the best scripts in town. So I did all kinds of other things, but the writing happened, and that's when I wrote The Rowdyman and John and the Missus. Both of them are down there, and a friend of mine was up in Canada trying to find money to make The Rowdyman, and I was down there trying to find it, and between the jigs and the reels, it happened. It came together.
Yeah, which was, I mean, it's like going to the moon making a movie in Newfoundland back then, or making a movie
certainly
about
at that
Newfoundland
time.
back then.
Yes,
Yeah.
my lord, it was quite extraordinary. And I was wearing a Hollywood weight belt at the time around the waist, and I had a couple on the wrist, trying to get in shape while sitting on the floor of my house, and having had a lot of scotch in me, waiting for news to come from Canada. And the news did come that we had no money to make The Rowdyman. I got up and I raced out through the doors into the pool with me white belts on. And so somebody else almost got to play Will Cole, the Rowdyman, because I stayed down there for quite a while.
He almost went down. You know, like I said, when I texted my mother to tell her I was talking to you, I said, I said, I'm talking to, Gordon Pinsent. She said, the Rowdyman, go away. But like I said to other people, when I was a kid, when I found out Babar was from Newfoundland, to a lot of people, that's how you're known in this country, as Babar,
Yes,
after
I
everything
know.
you've done. How does
I
that
know.
feel?
I don't know. I was one of the last times I was back. Somebody said, a teacher said, "Would you come up and say hello to the kids?" I said, "Yes, all right, sure." I go up and we're sitting on two stools and we're talking, facing all these little children, and they wouldn't have known me from Adam, maybe unless their parents. So
But they weren't Quentin Durgan's fans necessarily.
they weren't. No, they had
no.
no thought of that at all. And so we're chatting away. And the teacher said to the kids, "You know this man? Oh, well, he's done such and such. Oh, yeah. Oh, the kids weren't saying much. And then a voice in the back row of the children said, "Is you the voice of Babar?" And so I said, I suppose his mother must have said, "Oh, I think he does better." So
That's something else, man. That's there's not many actors who affect one generation of people. But to feel like, depending how old you are, from whether you're 10 years old or whether you're 80 years old in this country, you have something to associate with Gordon Pinsent. That must feel pretty good.
yeah, it does feel good. It really does,
Yeah.
And I used to think, literally thought, well, that one thing is over. Let's try another, and so on. I was the one who sort of pulled the plug on a couple of series that I was doing because I didn't want to keep doing the same thing over and over.
Restless.
And
You were restless.
yeah, absolutely. Well, to be honest, I wanted to compile many, 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 many things, and this was the magical world of this business, the colorful world of this business. I wanted to keep going, and I still do.
Before I let you go, and you've been so generous with your time, thanks a lot for doing this, by the way. It's been such a pleasure for me. We mentioned Grand Falls, now Grand Falls-Windsor. Don't write in. We mentioned Toronto. We mentioned Stratford. We mentioned Winnipeg. We mentioned Los Angeles. Where do you, Gordon Pinsent, feel most at home?
Most at home. It's maybe there may be another way to phrase that, and I'm not sure what the other way would be. Because home obviously has been Newfoundland. My most prized possession is my birth certificate from Newfoundland. But Toronto has always been the key place for work, and unless I stop the foolishness of work altogether, I'll probably stay here. My wife Charm she was from here. And we knew Toronto very well and seen the changes coming along, and so it's always meant a great deal.
You haven't lost your accent at all, have you?
Well, that's talking to you.
That might be, and I feel mine coming back out too. Gordon Pinsent, it was such a pleasure speaking with you.
God bless, Tom.